Thank you. Palfest, Mizna, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you, Tim, for being with me, for giving me some strength. If I must die, you must live to tell my story, to sell my things, to buy a piece of cloth and some strings, make it white with a long tail, so that a child somewhere in Gaza, while looking heaven in the eye, awaiting his dad who left in a blaze, and bid no one farewell, not even to his flesh, not even to himself, sees the kite. My kite you made, flying up above, and thinks for a moment an angel is there, bringing back love. If I must die, let it bring hope. Let it be a tale.
I'm Sadia Yassin, and I'm a Palestinian-American journalist. I've been curating events for the Palestine Festival of Literature here in the United States. It's an honor for us to be here in Minneapolis for the very first time, and I would like to thank Mizna and the Parkway Theater for being wonderful partners through this process. You can clap. Thank you. So I want to start off by telling you a little bit about PalFest. Historically, it's been a traveling literary festival, and what it did was it took well-known writers, artists, and culture workers across cities in Palestine. It was founded in 2008 by Ahdaf Suwaif, who's a legendary Egyptian novelist, and she created the festival as a form of cultural solidarity with Palestine. The trip for many people is transformative. In about a week, participants learn a great deal about the history, politics, and daily life in Palestine, and engage with the public and local artists through events and workshops. Since the start of the genocide, we have found it to be urgent to engage with the public through events like this one. Please make sure you follow PalFest to hear other events we organize in the US. And it's, again, an honor to be here and to be able to share PalFest with so many people across the country. So thank you so much. I would like to introduce the first person who's reading tonight, who is a wonderful poet named Dina Omar. I'm going to tell you a little bit about her, and then you don't have to look at me for a little bit. Okay, so Dina Omar is a lecturer at UC Berkeley who teaches Palestinian poetry. She is a doctoral candidate at Yale University in anthropology and gender and women's study. While studying for her master's degree at Columbia University, Dina was part of the ad hoc organizing committee that founded National Students for Justice in Palestine. You can clap for that. Between 2012 and 2014, she served on the National Executive Board of the Palestine Youth Movement and was part of establishing the Ghassan Kanafani Writing Scholarship for young Palestinian writers. Dina was a student and teacher poet for June Jordan's Poetry for the People program from 2006 to 2009. Please join me in welcoming Dina.
I haven't done this in a long time. Ya'atikum al-afia. Thank you to Mizna, and to the Palestinian Literature Festival for the invitation. Thank you to the organizers. I am really honored to be in such good company, and I'm always very impressed by how elegantly you all do what you do. I'm gonna read a poem, and then maybe I'll talk a little bit. I'm gonna read a poem called Free Flight. It is titled Free Flight after a June Jordan poem also titled Free Flight. And the subtitle is What It Is Like Being a Palestinian Woman at UC Berkeley While Gaza is Burning. And it's dedicated to my best friend, Janine Wihbe, who was born in Yarmouk refugee camp, and also she was born in Nahr al-Bared refugee camp in Lebanon, and then lived in Yarmouk. And she was visiting me at UC Berkeley during the 2008 and 2009, I would say like 2.0 premonition of what we're seeing right now, like the full Gaza, of what's happening in Gaza right now. So just to give you a sense of, her, father's father had gone through those things, and that's sort of what influenced her trajectory. And here it goes. Free flight. Nothing fills me up at night. Janine and I spend hours rolling grape leaves to distract ourselves from internet updates. The death toll is rising, the detected use of dime bombs. I inhale a whole box of red strawberry licorice from Trader Joe's. I drink a whole pot of Metamia. I lick the chocolate off the bottom of my ice cream. Janine and I stay up till 4 a.m., our eyes completely ajar, staring at each other in the turquoise night, silent in my El Cerrito bedroom. The last time this happened, in 2006, I chalked with red pastel crayon the name of Salim all over my bedroom wall, S-A-L-E-M. He was 22 years old and beneath the rubble. Red dust on the pillow, red dust on the blanket, red dust on the white sheets. Red dust smears between my hands and my face and on the floor, and chalk is not blood, but it might as well be his blood on my hands. And I cannot help but wonder what is worse, being killed or watching killing on a full stomach. I should have spared loving men who think it is better to end their lives than to continue playing this game where the cards are always stacked up against them. And after protesting in San Francisco and LA, the sixth one so far, my kidney infection turns into this weird stomach hurting, and I cannot feel below my belly. Ibtisam, Yaman, Kifah, Hussam, Wasim, Amin, Tom, Emiliano, Shaib, Dalia, Ali, everybody in SJP, Berkeley. We lift little milk cartons and make believe they are tiny dead bodies so that college students on our campus will feel something, so anyone will feel anything on their way to class, going to poli-sci or OChem or comparative literatures of South Asian diasporas. Maybe somebody will notice in the midst of writing a paper, maybe due tomorrow. Anyone will take a moment to not roll their head, to not turn their head, roll their eyes and say, they're so radical. Why are they always protesting? We want you to notice because white phosphorus starts small, like a scratch, a little burn, and water is like a small flame to pus-filled scars, and within hours it eats away at flesh, and white phosphorus is stuck in the eyes of that little boy. I saw his picture, but I cannot remember his name. And what does white phosphorus look like in the eyes? Like a glazed-over lizard, skin splintered, a rotting peel, speckles on a thigh. Tahrir's thigh, a young woman. I have a thigh too. Take it, burn it, slowly. Take the ash and use it as charcoal sketches to put Handala's back against every bare wall in this goddamn college town. And water only makes it worse. And what an awful way to die. And there we are wasting time stacking milk cartons on my college campus, pleading with Zionist jerks from Tikva, Israel, who deny my existence and blame this massacre on the Palestinians, as if we love killing ourselves like a football match. And every time a body drops, we score a goal. And the good guys wear green and the evil ones wear light blue, or vice versa, depending on who you ask. And Palestinians are evil, the boy from Tikva says, and I do not care, and I hold the line. I do not move. And I have been generous with my empathy. I have listened to stories of Holocaust survivors and held their stories as dearly as my own. I have spent hours on end listening to conversations about Jewish identity and conflicting ideas about survival and genocide. And longevity, and that is why you should get it. Make the connection. This is not survival. Israel is rotting from the inside, and you gotta draw a line in the sand and say, get over your intellectual get over your intellectual pursuit about rationalizing the burning pus in the streets. Because Tahrir's skin is burning, slowly, slowly. It started like a little blister on her thigh, and now she is dead because water only makes it worse. And now Gaza doesn't have no water anyway. And that boy, I cannot remember his name, has white phosphorus in his eyes. And although I appreciate your intellectual pursuits about identity, get over your fucking self. And maybe next time some Zionist thug wants to push me around, I will hustle him into a hammerlock and tickle his armpits until he admits that he is just some rich asshole who has money and leisure time to threaten broke brown girls like myself. And I will give him a noogie. And I will say, oh, hell no. I do not care that you are rich or that you are white and that you got all these big, scary lawyers and acronyms behind you like the ADL and AIPAC and the IDF. And I am not impressed. And you are not cute. And you will not keep me quiet. And I am not afraid of you. And fuck you for taking up so much time and space in my poem. Because Tahrir is burning slowly, slowly, and the boy, I cannot remember his name, has white phosphorus in his eyes, and Janine and I have not slept between protests happening so fast and intensifying by the day, but it doesn't seem to matter because bombs are still falling and the graves are still in flame and death tolls are increasing by the day, and 430. Sorry, just a little aside. This was written in 2009, and the death toll of children who were killed was 430. And today it's 17,000. And maybe I want to dissolve like the Palestinian Authority and accept money that the PLO throws at young activists and educated people like myself, and undermine people doing real shit on the ground like taking bodies out of the rubble. And maybe I should burn flags and occupy a building because Panda Express is gonna run out the small businesses owned by Arabs on campus, and tuition fees are going up, and Hussam's cousin was just arrested and his trial is nowhere in sight. And life seems so lifeless anyway. I mean, I got nothing to lose. You have taken everything from us without one photo of the boys in Gaza without their classmates sitting next to them. So arrest me, tase me, hang me from a hook, beat me. Maybe I need to burn a flag. Yeah, I'll burn the American flag. And I'll burn the Israeli flag too. And hell, maybe if it were not for the occupation and the genocide of my people, I would burn the Palestinian flag too. I would not be so patriotic if my people were not slowly, slowly up in flames. I would not have this inclination to wear a kufiya and yell at people who bought knockoffs at Urban Outfitters and say, hey, you are appropriating my national identity and don't know what that means. Because we are burning slowly, slowly, and I will totally burn a flag. Because what is national identity anyway except to exclude people from bordered space and auction off any semblance we have of human dignity. And nothing fills me up at night. And maybe I need an olive branch. You know, a white dove, long hair, and a peace sign, and a drum circle. The kind of body that gets beat up and trampled on by the police. And that the closer I get to the Gandhis of the world, the better I look to white liberals. And somebody make it stop and make me laugh and spit bullets at my enemies and say, fuck it all. Maybe I need an AK, a Molotov cocktail, and a videotape goodbye letter to my family who is already busy dying. The kind of body that socks and pushes back at people who grope me the wrong way. The kind of body that the closer I get to death, the better I look to the good old boys in the Knesset. And somebody make it stop and make me laugh and spit bullets at my enemies and say, fuck it all. Maybe when I wake up in the middle of the night and bolt the door behind me shut and pour all my shampoo and soap out the bottles and smear it beneath my feet, I shut the windows, strip down naked, stream the water on high and loud in the sink and in the bathtub, writing poems on the mirror with eyeliner and in the shower curtain with broken lipstick. I sink my head under the water, running loud, spilling over onto the bathroom floor so that the cries of the dead don't scream so loud in my head, so that the cries of the dead don't scream so loud in my head. Let the water stick in my throat. Water only makes it burn. I have one more thing to say. A little nod to Sahad Amri. Today is my birthday. And the anniversary of the first Intifada. So in that spirit, I will say, I am with you. Ceasefire now, permanent, lasting, arms embargo now, free Palestine, free all the Syrian prisoners. Yeah, thank you.
Cool. All right, this last one, I need your help. So when I point at you, you're gonna say free Palestine, okay? Let's try that, all right?
Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine!
You sound good, all right. And say that shit like you mean it, right? I'm Christian, unfortunately, and we really believe in, calling things into existence, right? So us all in this room shouting this is no small act. It is incantory, right? We are calling that future forward when we do that. All right, this poem, once again, is thinking about June Jordan. It starts with a quote from her, from the poem, Moving Toward Home. I was born a black woman, and now I am become a Palestinian against the relentless laughter of evil. There is less and less living room, and where are my loved ones? He calls them the children of darkness, and being one myself, having been plucked from between stars, having been born again and again in the dark, dark bellies of those ships delivered as cargo into the suffocating maw of America, I find my kin. Human animals, he called them, and having been ape, been dog, been mongrel, cattled and cold, I knew who was my brother. This late in empire, late meaning near its end, not near its completion. Let my language be clear and dangerous as water. Let my mind's tongue move sound, be exact where venom is intended and where light sought. Animals. He called them animals. Said the birds, said the fish, said the mice, said the mountain lions louder, said the cattle, said the wolves, said the horses, said the bats louder, said the elephants, said the deer, said the squirrels, said the bears louder, said the wildebeest, said the geckos, said the snakes, said the dogs and cats louder, said the bees, said the spiders, said the ants, said the rhinos, the birds again. Nature. I hear your prayer. I see your terror. I know my teeth. Thank you.
So we are going to have two panel discussions tonight. We're going to have our first one now. I would like to introduce our moderator, Nick Estes. He's an enrolled member of the Lower Brule Sioux tribe. He is an assistant professor in American Indian Studies at the University of Minnesota. He is the author of the award-winning book, Our History is the Future, Standing Rock versus the Dakota Access Pipeline, and the Long Tradition of Indigenous Resistance, 2019, which explores the Dakota Access Pipeline protests through the lens of Indigenous history and resistance. Estes also co-edited Standing with Standing Rock, Voices from the #NoDAPL Movement, 2019, with Jaskier and Dylan, a collection of essays from more than 30 contributors that reflects on the movement's significance and its place within the broader context of Indigenous struggles for sovereignty. His work highlights the longstanding tradition of Indigenous activism and its contemporary relevance in environmental and political movements. Please join me in welcoming Nick, who will introduce his panelists as well.
Hamatakiapi, Nape Chuzapi, Chante Washte. I just want to thank PALFest and the organizers of tonight's event. I'll just, like the price is right, I'm going to call people up. The first is we have Segura Shahid, is a Pushcart Prize-nominated Black Muslim poet from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Her poetry and prose are published in Mizna, Winter Tangerine, Prose Online, Juked, About Place Journal, and elsewhere. In 2020, her poetry was selected by Muslim advocates and Shangri-La Museum of Islamic Art, Culture, and Design for inclusion in the American Muslim Futures virtual exhibit. Segura is a poetry editor for Overtly Lit. Next, we have Sara Aziza, who is a Palestinian-American writer with roots in Deir al-Balah, Gaza. She asks you to do your part in the struggle to liberate Palestine and all people. Her award-winning journalism, poetry, essays, and creative nonfiction have appeared in The New Yorker, The Baffler, Harper's, Mizna, Washington Post, The Intercept, and The Nation, among others. She has received residencies and fellowships from Fulbright, the Tin House Writers Workshop, the Asian American Writers Workshop, Cafe Royal Society, and the Pulitzer Center on Crisis Reporting and Millet Arts. Her first book, The Hollow Half, is a work of experimental memoir, exploring the intertwined legacies of diaspora, colonialism, and the American dream. It will be published in April 2025. And last but not least is Dina Omar, who's already been introduced. And so briefly, the idea behind this panel was talking about solidarity and the future of this particular moment. And so the first question, this might seem like a basic question, but I'm a historian. I'm not a poet. I'm not a lit person, really. I'm kind of an odd person out over here. So I asked some really hard-hitting questions, I guess. So, however you want to answer them, please feel free. But what does solidarity mean to you? And we'll just start with Dina on that end and just go this way.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. I'm really excited to be up here with all three of you. What does solidarity mean to me? I think it's a complicated question, mostly because solidarity, I think, means being in good relationship with people. And in deep relationship with people, and valuing the other person's life as your family, as your kin, as your own. And in doing so, I think one of the main things involved in that little thing is being able to be different and have differences of opinions and even, fight or sort of, but not leave each other and stay committed to one another. So that's how I would sort of describe solidarity. Yeah, that's what it means to me.
Not to be derivative, but I agree with everything you said. I was thinking about relationality. That's the first word that comes to my mind as well. And to the point of like familiality is something I've been thinking about lately, which, you pointed to already, in that like siblings in best cases know each other so intimately and to the point of conflict sometimes, but ideally to the point of then maturing past that conflict, learning from one another. And personally, as someone who loves their siblings deeply, like I would show up and fight for them, like no questions asked. Their pain is my pain. I absolutely am so different from each one of them, but would just honestly put my life on the line for them. And I guess the other thing that I would say is it's like an embodied practice. As virtual as our world is, I think the deepest solidarity requires some form of embodiment and being physically together to the extent that's possible.
I also agree with everything that you all are saying. But to add, I would say part of how I'm thinking about solidarity lately is it's nuanced, right? And it's contextual, related to like what you can risk and what you can lose. I'm borrowing from what a local academic said about the academy and activism. Dr. Finkelstein, Mara, said that we have to think about the things that we're willing to risk. So I think solidarity in part is like along those lines of like the sibling relationship, like what are you willing to lose for someone else, and what can you like and interrogate regarding your privilege. And I think solidarity is like that willingness to be able to risk something for your beloved, right? And understanding your context in that regard as well. But I think it is contextual, it's individual, it's deeply relational as well.
Yeah, I really appreciate those answers, especially coming from a profession where solidarity isn't built into what we do. We're often taught as writers and as academics to compete against each other. And we often don't unite around causes. And I think Palestine especially has brought in, especially with the BDS movement and the commitments by Palestinians, writers against the war in Gaza, but also, there's a kind of larger political moment where I want each of you to maybe reflect on, because I remember back in, before 2020, when Trump lost the election, there was a massive moment in which Democrats and liberals really incorporated or co-opted Black Lives Matter and the struggle for racial justice into their campaign, and then completely gutted, any promise that they had made, fell back on it. And in this moment in time, in a time of terrible danger and genocide, they've completely literally locked the doors on Palestinians and not have granted the same kind of stage or platform even within their own party. And in fact their policy is no different in a lot of ways to their rival party. And I was wondering if either of you could reflect on this particular moment in time about the limits of solidarity, especially when it comes to, as Denez really pointed out in his beautiful language, or in their beautiful language, what does it mean to love one's colonizer? Or we're taught to love one's oppressor, to cry on the shoulder of the people who are literally murdering our families, or the cry on the shoulder of the man who stole our land. They have solidarity with each other. So what are the limits of our solidarity with them?
When the way you contextualize it is a little different than in the yes. It's limited. I was like, when I first read the question, I was like, it's boundless, it's limitless, solidarity forever. But when you put it in that context, yes, like the hill I am going to die on is if anybody regurgitates. I don't care what color your skin is, or what, if you don't have the sort of like critical thinking skills to not regurgitate the sort of lies, deliberate, malicious misinformation about, things like beheaded babies and systemic rape, just echoing at the highest echelons of power, then I just viscerally cannot relate to you, because we're not seeing the same thing. To me, what I see is the wholesale dehumanization of maybe in particular men of color, for the purpose of allowing brute colonial violence to be perpetuated, to allow people, or to legitimize it. And yeah, I think that it's, there has to be a line in a red line where you say you're not allowed to, we're not sharing the same historical, deep, rigorous sense of commitment. Yeah.
Yeah, of course, that's very well put. I think that something I would add is, like, in this current moment, the limitations that we've seen in solidarity. You pointed to the moment of 2020 until today. I think a lot of the cleavages and like the conflict that we saw between different communities of color, specifically that Palestine brought to the fore in this election, to me, it was painful to watch on many levels. It was painful to be a person whose family is being killed in Gaza every day, and be told that I'm the problem. But I think that, as absurd as it sounds, if you put it that way, or if you really have your eyes open, to me, it just so clearly expressed the extremity that everyone in the United States is in one way or another, that this is a country, aside from the ruling few that you mentioned, do have solidarity with one another. Some people are, very organized. I just see the way that people are in so much pain and fear drives us into a state of primal sort of survival and concern for just one's own or just one's self, and maybe a willingness or a susceptibility to believe that we don't have interests in common when we absolutely do. And I think it's the worst kept secret, but we need to continue to work hard to make those things visible and plain, how no one is safe. All the platitudes are so true. No one's free until we're all free, Palestine cannot be free in the world as it exists now. To free Palestine is truly to break the systems that are oppressing probably every single one of us in this room. Being in this room means we're probably, not the people that power serves on a daily basis. So, yeah, the limits of solidarity are, I think, drawn by our fear and our lack of love and understanding and ability to see one another. And there are moments where that needs to be called out. I absolutely agree. And I do think that if we're in relational solidarity, if we're actually living our lives day in and day out with one another, we won't fall prey to those myths and that propaganda. It just won't be an option. So there are moments when solidarity feels so easy and simple because there are those human moments where, yes, we're coming from very different places, but we're recognizing the abandonment and the violence that is the United States of America, because we're watching our friend be failed by the healthcare system, or we're watching our friend not be able to pay for groceries because this country, in indirect ways, is funding a genocide. The lines are just everywhere for us to connect, but fear is such a block to seeing those things.
All right. Just to add briefly, I think a lot about how solidarity can be what you were saying earlier about it being weaponized. I think about how it's a continuum that we can't forget, that it means we have to continue this work, thinking about the solidarity historically between Black civil rights members and like the NAACP and like Jewish community members, and how that solidarity was really important, but it doesn't at the same time in this contemporary sense absolve us from like interrogating our growing our knowledge and growing our relationships to each other. I think part of it is also to thinking about how underneath the pain of our respective communities, like we always have to have that self-awareness and that reflection collectively, and that doesn't stop. I'm gonna stop talking though because I'm rambling, but part of solidarity is listening and knowing when to listen and create space. So I'm really intentional about trying to make sure that I'm not taking up too much space.
Actually, on that note, can I just add one little thing? That I don't want to flatten in what I said earlier. I don't think I did a good enough job at like acknowledging that we are not oppressed in equal ways or in equal measures, and that there needs to be a reckoning. Each member of the community, the privileges they carry, the different abilities, the different resources. So I definitely do want to acknowledge that as well. There needs to be, like you said, self-reflection and painful inner work as well, and intra-communal work.
Yeah, I think those are really excellent reflections, and something that you all have kind of mentioned in your answers is about relationality, and thinking specifically about this place, coming here. I was born and raised in South Dakota, and I thought South Dakota was racist until I came here. They literally rebuilt the concentration camp they get my ancestors in at Fort Snelling. I was walking by it, I had no idea it was like rebuilt, and sure enough, and they were like turning butter. They were doing like, frontier reenactment, and it's so ingrained within the culture of Minnesota. Like it's the air they breathe. But what I thought was fascinating is that even the name Minnesota Makoche, it means land where the water reflects the sky, and that is about relationality. It has all the three elements: land, water, sky. You breathe the air, you live on the land, you drink the water, right? That's our relationship as Lakota people to this land. And Dakota and Lakota actually mean just ally and friend. It's like literally, that's who we are. We're just good friends, I guess. But it also gets to this question that I think the Palestine Solidarity Movement has really brought to the forefront, especially organizations like SJP, Student Justice for Palestine. But also, I've read it a lot and heard it a lot in poems and in literature, is a question of settler colonialism. In a nation state that has been founded on enslavement, genocide, and the ongoing legacies of white supremacy. So how do we position ourselves alongside other freedom struggles within the context of settler colonialism? What Israel is doing is not new by any means. People were online, some of my historians friends were saying, this is 19th century barbarity. It's like, this is the 21st century. Where do you live? Do you speak Dakota? Like, we're all speaking English for a reason, But I wanted, because each of you are positioned in different ways and in different locations, and maybe we could start with you, start with the local and maybe go down this way, but thinking about what does it mean to position Palestine alongside other freedom struggles. It's one thing to say, and I really take that to heart, that we're, unless we're all free, no one's free, right? But what does that actually mean in the work we do, how we move through the world, how we interpret and feel this particular moment?
Yeah, I think part of my thinking around this is just acknowledging first that it isn't new, our positionality. So a lot of folks quoted June Jordan and some of the work, and thinking about that Malcolm X, for example, wrote this letter condemning Zionism way back when. And so thinking about different, like how we have always been positioned in solidarity with each other, and we've always had this archive of history and movements to consider. And so it isn't new. And I think part of what I'm thinking about too is just, I'm going back to learning and listening. I have to be honest with you all. I almost didn't show up today because I've just been going through a lot. But I'm thinking about and we're all going through a lot. but thinking about that it was really important for me to show up for my community, for my beloveds, to be here with you all, because I've sat with your words, because I have most of, like, I think about how your poems and your work, and thinking about how in Minneapolis, for example, during the Rawi Fest, we were all like sitting with you afar, like trying to advocate and trying to make sure that we didn't forget about you and everyone. And so I think part of it is just like being present and feeling in our bodies and our spirits, and knowing that we are in direct connection and direct relationship to these histories and each other. And I think that that positionality is always changing. I love that we are a place that is in dialogue with the river, and that in the name itself, that we are in dialogue with the river and the sky. And when you think about continuums, and we think about how water is always changing, it's always in relationship to the sky. And so with evaporation and all that stuff, and rain and snow. And so I think that's kind of like us. Like, we're always having to adapt. We're always having to change. We always have to do work. We might have to sacrifice some things, but that positionality is always different. And just being willing to be open to that, to sit with that, to receive that, to learn, even if it's imperfect. I feel very imperfect in this moment, but I'm happy to be with you all.
Wow. I mean, I think you just said so much, and you also just embodied it. So thank you for being here. Thank you for, I mean, even in like the few days of interactions that we've had, like, you've been such a beautiful balm, and I truly feel supported by you, and I'm so grateful for that. So thank you. And that sort of like reminds me of one thing that I could say to answer Nick's question, which is legacy, which you pointed to. I learned about solidarity and activism not because I'm Palestinian, although I should. I'm the daughter of a refugee. Like, I was afraid of movements before Trayvon Martin was killed. That's the first time I ever stepped into the streets. And it was like the movement for Black Lives in that iteration and further iterations that taught me so much about courage. And then it was Indigenous movements, Native movements that showed me about world building and the relationality with the land, and gave me another language and another set of concepts to begin to understand myself as like a Palestinian whose people are not free yet, working for liberation, and what that means, which is building an entire new world. So to answer Nick's question, which was really good, and I'm trying to come back to it now, what does it actually mean, right? Well, one thing I feel like it's always so important to say is, like, we won't free Palestine. Like, Palestinians are freeing Palestine on the land, and we need to affirm that everywhere we turn, that the struggle, there is a battlefront, and it's there, and we're the second wave, I guess, of that struggle in relation to Palestine. But we also know that freeing Palestine means bringing down empire, settler colonialism. Now I'm remembering what you brought up. Settler colonialism is active, and it's present, and it's ongoing, and it's here, as you mentioned. So it's not through electoral politics, and it's not through representational politics, as Dinez brought up, but it's through fighting and also building at the same time. Because of the fear I mentioned earlier, I think that people's needs need to be met, and people's fears need to be, accommodated and recognized and reckoned with and addressed in order for there to be the courage to continue to step out of the known, whether it's the two-party system or the idea that the U.S. military is somehow keeping us safe, or any of those things, or that having a captor that looks like us is going to save us. Like, we need to counter. I think it's beautiful that this is a literary event, because we need to build new stories. There's an entirely new world, which also I think is a world that would harken back to the old and to the earth. We need so much more imagination. So I think that as Palestinians are freeing Palestine, our job here is to bring this place to its knees, and we do that through fighting, and we do that through building. So.
I don't have much to add to the really beautiful ways that you both articulated, the how question, except to say, Sagira, I really empathize, and like, am lockstep with you. I don't know why I decided last minute to read a poem from 2009. I felt like I needed June to like push me on stage, because I've been very suspicious of the podium, of the sort of public facing thing. Like I feel it in my body, that uncomfortability, that hesitation, the trepidation, the fear. But it's not necessarily fear of the oppressor, it's fear of the structure. And I would say, or like the form, right? And my approach instead has recently been like, and this is why I think maybe campuses or SJPs are lucky, because they're like physically in the same vicinity with one another. But like you said, you show up to, and it's hard because like sometimes it feels like the spaces are closing in on us, but in spaces together, however uncomfortable it is, in ceremony, in prayer, in the streets. The point is like, I don't know if things are gonna get better anytime soon, but we're gonna need each other. And we have to lean on community, and we have to figure out how to relate and protect each other. And that's all I'll add.
Thank you. I want to just put on my historian cap for just a second, because the word or the term settler colonialism is currently under attack. I had some of my own colleagues even say settler colonialism risks being anti-Semitic. Yeah. I have like a black book of academics quotes, things that they say to me. That was the really funniest one. It's like, okay, Jim.
Okay, and I'll close with my personal poetry hero on the title poem of the book, sort of, you'll see why. But June Jordan was the first American poet who said Palestinian for me. I happened upon a book of hers at the bookstore as a college student. I was like, how am I a literature student and no one has ever taught me this poet? Not in a high school classroom, not in a college classroom. And it was amazing. And then I started to understand why pretty quickly, but it might have something to do with naming us. But her book Living Room felt like being found and being seen. And so I invite you all to read it and all of her work. This is Letter to June Jordan in September. I cannot pass the anniversary of that first news event of childhood without returning to your poem. How from my house I watched, and watched my grief-stricken parents unable to speak. How I leaned into the screen, the chords of the cries, searching for what was recognizable of fingers and thighs, of bracelets and mustaches. Macabre arrangement of bodies with names like our own. I cannot pass without your words. Something about witnessing twice removed. About distances magnified by the shift into language, of dailiness and my own children's vernacular and the machine, grinding us all in its jaws. I met a girl from the camp at a reading in Beirut. She asked if we could talk about the life of poetry. Our families are hauled off to the world of the dead, and every day it is on screen. In Gaza, we're watching Ferguson, and in Atlanta, we're watching Jerusalem, watching Minneapolis, watching. Their weapons and their training programs, indistinguishable. The word almost flickers for a nanosecond. Here, I note the shelf life of self-censorship, legacy of our era. Some days, poems are scrawled on pieces of cardboard and carried on our shoulders at the protest like martyrs. Here, I should say something about hope. Here, I should say something about living. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nina. That was That was incredible. So I would like to bring up our final act, who I have wronged in two ways. One, I would like to say his name correctly this time. Musab Abu Toha. Damn diaspora. And then also I forgot to mention his new book, Forest of Noise. So thank you so much. So Musab will be doing something really special for you guys. He will be joined by Tim O'Keefe, who is known to many of you here. He has been performing Arabic music for more than 40 years. He is part of an Arabic music ensemble called Amwaj, and he has done many live music collaborations locally and elsewhere. Tim is trained with Simon Shaheen for many years and is skilled in many classic Arabic instruments. He has performed Arabic music around the world, including at the Jarash Festival in Jordan and in Palestine, in Birzeit, East Jerusalem, and Bethlehem, and Lena's wedding. So please join me in welcoming them. Thank you.
Tomorrow is the official publication date of the book. And I and so many friends and I want to make this a bestseller. And I encourage every one of you to order the book and to make this book an international and national bestseller, to make it to the lists in the New York Times and to other magazines and newspapers that in many ways have contributed to the death of Rifat and so many of my friends and families. Okay, start. So I'm going to read 3 poems from this book. This is the only survivor with me from Gaza. I had 2 public libraries in Gaza, Edward Said Public Libraries, and I also had a library in my house which was destroyed in October last year. So that was the only thing I took with me. The first poem is called Palestine AZ, and it's a long poem, but I'm going to read just the first 3 parts. Palestine AZ. A. An apple that fell from the table on a dark evening, when man-made lightning flashed through the kitchen, the streets, and the sky, rattling the cupboards and breaking the dishes. Am is the linking verb that follows I in the present tense when I am no longer present, when I am shattered. B. A book that doesn't mention my language or my country and has maps of every place except for my birthplace, as if I were an illegitimate child on Mother Earth. Borders are those invented lines drawn with ash on maps and sewn into the ground by bullets. C. Gaza is a city where tourists gather to take photos next to destroyed buildings or graveyards. A country that exists only in my mind. Its flag has no room to fly freely, but there is space on the coffins of my countrymen. And this book was published in 2022. Some of the poems were written in 2017, 2018, and some of the poems here are outdated even, because in this, even my people, especially in northern Gaza, they don't even have the luxury of having a flag to be wrapped around their bodies. They don't even have shrouds in Gaza. If you look at the photos of the recent massacres, you see people wrapped and shrouded in their blankets that are much needed for winter right now. But this is our situation. That's why it's important to document, because when you write a poem today, people are going to read it a few years later and see, oh, that reality is different from now, even though it was very, very bad. And this is what my poetry book tells me. when I go back and read it. That's why when Audre Lorde said poetry is not a luxury, it's not only that writing poetry is not a luxury, but even reading it is not a luxury. Because you realize how shocking, how genocidal this world has become. Okay. We'll do it now. يما مويل الهوى. Can I get my phone? Sorry. Okay, start over. Okay. Sorry. يما مويل الهوى يما مويلية ضرب الخناجر ولا حكم الناذل فيا يما مويل الهوى يما مويلية ضرب الخناجر ولا حكم الناذل فيا ومشيت تحت الشتاء والشتاء رواني والصيف لما أتى ولع من نيراني بضل عمر الفتاني ذر للحرية يما مويل الهوى يما مويلية ضرب الخناجر ولا حكم الناذل فيا يا ليل صح الندى يشهد على جراحي وانسى الجيش العيدة من كل النواحي والليل شاف الرادة عم يتعلم بيا. Thank you. A litany for one land, after Audre Lorde. For those living on the other side, we can see you. We can see the rain when it pours on our fields, on our valleys, and when it slides down the roofs of your modern houses built atop our homes. Can you take off your sunglasses and look at us here? See how the rain has flooded our streets, how the children's umbrellas have been pierced by a prickly downpour on their way to school. The trees you see have been watered with our tears. They bear no fruit. The red roses take their color from our blood. They smell of death. The river that separates us from you is just a mirage you created when you expelled us. It is one land. For those who are standing on the other side, shooting at us, spitting on us, how long can you stand there, fenced by hate? Are you going to keep your black glasses on until you are unable to put them down? Soon, we won't be here for you to watch. It won't matter if you blink your eyes or not, if you can stand or not. You won't cross that river to take more land, because you will vanish into your mirage. You can't build a new colony on our graves. And when we die, our bones will continue to grow, to reach and intertwine with the roots of the olive and orange trees, to bathe in the sweet Yafa Sea. One day, we will be born again when you are not there, because this land knows us. She is our mother. When we die, we are just resting in her womb until the darkness is cleared. For those who are not here anymore, we have been here forever, but you never cared to listen. Okay, I will save the... There is a poem in the second book called Gaza Notebooks, 2021-2023. Just gonna read two parts. At 5th grade, I visit the school library. On a wall by the door, a poster claims, if you read books, you live more than one life. Now I'm 30, so I'm now 32. This poem is 2 years old. Now I'm 30, and whenever I look at faces around me, old or young, on each forehead I read, if you live in Gaza, you die several times. Stones of house after the explosion get amnesia. Some forget they were in a wall, in a bedroom, or a kitchen, or a bathroom, some in a ceiling. Some forget they sat behind photo frames for years. A few stones forget they were stones, those hit by the bomb. My dreams as a child. I still have dreams about a room filled with toys my mother always promised we could have if we were rich. I still have dreams about seeing the refugee camp from a window on a plane. I still have dreams about seeing the animals I learned about in 3rd grade, elephant, giraffe, kangaroo, and wolf. I still have dreams about running for miles and miles, with no border blocking my feet, with no unexploded bombs scaring me off. I still have dreams about watching my favorite team playing soccer on the beach, me waiting for the ball to come my way and run away with it. I dream still about my grandfather, how much I want to pick oranges with him in Jaffa. But my grandfather died. Jaffa is occupied, and oranges no longer grow in his weeping groves. I told you about the poem for a moment. Her small body rides in my arms as I run to the hospital. There is no electricity, and the inner hallways are a forest lined with cots. The girl I carry is dead. I know that. The pressure of the explosion tore apart her thin veins. I know she is dead, but everyone who sees us runs after us. You are alive for a moment when living people run after you. The moon, and there is a story here about watching a video of a young man whose body was left in the street to be eaten up by cats. Even the cats were starving in Gaza. And you saw some videos I posted, if you are following me or other people, bodies which were left in the street being eaten up by dogs and cats and maybe mice, I don't know. You said that the mice and cats were saying free Palestine, but in Gaza they were made to eat the bodies of my fellow people. And there is also the photo of a daughter and her father, whose bodies again were left in the street, and you could see in the photo they were carrying their backpacks. Even the father, who is 50 years old, is carrying a backpack as if he's going to school. But in that backpack is his home. Some clothes, a bottle of water, some clothes for his daughter, some lollipops, his ID cards. So I wrote this poem about these two scenes, and I called it The Moon. She is lying on the asphalt, her small belly, her chest, her forehead, her hands, her cold feet bare in the night. A hungry cat paces. Shrapnel rings as it hits neighboring houses already bombed. The hungry cat sees the girl, her wounds still warm. Hungrier, the girl's father lies next to her on his back. The backpack he wears still has the girl's favorite candy and a small toy. The girl was waiting till they arrived to eat her lollipop. The cat gets close to try the flesh. A bomb pounds the street. No flesh, no girl, no father, no cat, Nobody is hungry. The moon overhead is not the moon. Okay. This is a poem that is published by Mizna. Before I sleep. Before I sleep, death is always sitting on my windowsill, whether in Gaza or in Cairo. Even when I lived in a tent, it never failed to create a window for itself. It looks me in the eye and recounts to me the many times it let me live. When I respond, "But you took my loved ones away," it swallows the light in the tent and hides in the dark to visit the next day. This poem is called Right or Left, and in the panel discussion I mentioned the stories of 3 friends, and this poem is about one of them whose body remains under the rubble since last November. My friend Ismail Abu Ghaban is a fellow Arabic. I taught English at honorable schools. He taught Arabic in honorable schools, and he was an avid reader of Arabic literature and world literature. He left Gaza. He left North Gaza for South Gaza, just as Israel directed everyone. He left his house with his 2 kids, Rimi and Osama, and his wife, and also his parents, and 5 sisters. In November, just a few days after I was released, just a few days after that, I was in the hospital, and my friend told me, "Look, let's go and visit Ismail's sisters. They are in the hospital." I said, "What happened?" He said, "Ismail was killed with his children, with his parents and 3 sisters. Only the 2 sisters survived. And the body of Ismail, his sister Ikram, about whom the poem was written, and the father, their bodies still remain under the rubble. Right or left? Under the rubble, her body has remained for days and days. When the war ends, we try to remove the rubble, stone after stone. We only find one small bone. It is a bone from her arm. Right or left? It does not matter as long as we cannot find the henna from her neighbor's wedding on her skin, or the ink from a school pen on a little index finger. There is one poem that is outdated, and I hope that no one from Gaza will read it and follow the instructions in it, because it's outdated. I wrote this poem back in May 2021 when Israel attacked Gaza for 11 days, killing so many people. What a Gazan should do during an Israeli airstrike: turn off the lights in every room, sit in the inner hallway of the house, away from the windows, stay away from the stove, stop thinking about making black tea, have a bottle of water nearby big enough to cool down children's fear, get a child's kindergarten backpack and stuff tiny toys and whatever amount of money there is, and the ID cards and photos of lady grandparents, aunts or uncles, and the grandparents' wedding invitation that's been kept for a long time. And if you are a farmer, you should put some strawberry seeds in one pocket and some soil from the balcony flower pot in the other, and hold on tight to whatever number there was on the cake from the last birthday. Okay, I will read one poem, and then another poem, and then another poem from the... That was a joke, okay. It's just provoking. Get down, My library. This is an old poem, so. My library. Because this is based on a real story. I was in my house. I had all of Edward Said's books on the shelves, etc. And there was an airstrike that's just a few hundred. That was maybe 2020. So no. I was in America. I think it was 2018, and there was an airstrike just a few hundred meters away from us, and some books fell off the shelves. And this is a poem about that. My library. My books remain on the shelves as I left them last year, but all the words have died. I search for my favorite book out of a place. I find it lying lonely in a drawer next to the photo album and my old Nokia phone. The pen inside the book is still intact, but some ink drops have leaked. Some words breathe its ink. The pen like a ventilator for a dozen patients. Home, Jerusalem, the sea, Haifa, the rock, the oranges, the sand, the pigeon, Cairo, my mother, Beirut, books, the rock, the sea, the sea. I will end with one poem, and before I read one from my first book. So this poem is very important to me. It's called Under the Rubble, and if you don't, I hope that you can get the book. If you can't get the book, it's published by The New Yorker, and it's also in my voice. So it's very important because I wrote it after October 7th, and every poem is a story. So this is a collection of stories in the poem. Under the Rubble. She slept on her bed, never woke up again. It could be Hiba Abu Nada, by the way, the poet about whom we were talking. She slept on her bed, never woke up again. Her bed has become her grave, a tomb beneath the ceiling of her room. The ceiling a cenotaph. No name, no year of birth, no year of death, no epitaph. Only blood and a smashed picture frame in ruin next to her. In Jabalia camp, a mother collects her daughter's flesh in a piggy bank, hoping to buy her a plot on a river in a faraway land. A group of a mute today is the anniversary of the killing of my wife's uncle. I told you about an uncle, but this is another uncle. That was last year, exactly today, last year. He was born deaf and mute. And he was abducted from inside a school that I attended for my 4th grade. He was abducted from inside the school, and then he was taken to the Kamal Adwan hospital when Israel turned it into an interrogation center. So they turned a hospital into an interrogation center. So he was abducted from the school, he was led to that hospital, and he was deaf and mute, and he was a father of 2 children. And because they took off their clothes, when he was released, the same day he was released, the doctors in the hospital gave him a doctor uniform. And then when he arrived at the gate to the school, he was shot by a sniper. And there was a photo, I posted it today because it's the anniversary. I posted the photo of Nassim because he was in a doctor's uniform. I mean, I said, it's impossible. Nassim is not a doctor, he's not a nurse. He's a teacher, he used to teach deaf students with special needs. I mean, but these were the only clothes that were available at the hospital at the time. A group of mute people were talking sign. When a bomb fell, they fell silent. It rained again last night. The new plant looked for an umbrella in the garage. The bombing got intense, and our house looked for a shelter in the neighborhood. I leave the door to my room open so the words in my books, the titles and names of authors and publishers could flee when they hear the bombs. I became homeless once, but the rubble of my city covered the streets. They could not find, this is based on a real thing that I saw. They could not find a stretcher to carry your body. They put you on a wooden door they found under the rubble. Your neighbors, a moving wall. The scars on our children's faces will look for you. Our children's amputated legs will run after you. And this part is very special because I wrote it in January. And just last month, I witnessed something very similar to what happened. 2 fathers were killed in front of a school shelter in a Shati camp where I was born in Gaza City. And around their bodies were loaves of bread that they were getting for their children. He left the house to buy some bread for his kids. News of his death made it home, but not the bread. no bread. Death sits to eat whoever remains of the kids. No need for a table, no need for bread. A father wakes up at night, sees the random colors on the walls drawn by his 4-year-old daughter. The colors are about 4 feet high. Next year, they would be 5. But the painter has died in an airstrike. There are no colors anymore. There are no walls. I changed the order of my books on the shelves. This is real. I changed the order of my books on the shelves. 2 days later, the war broke out. Beware of changing the order of your books. What are you thinking? What thinking? What you? You? Is there still you? You there? And this is a question that I still ask. Where should people go? Should they build a big ladder and go up? But heaven has been blocked by the drones and F-16s and the smoke of death. My son asks me whether, when we return to Gaza, I could get him a puppy. I say, I promise, if we can find any. I ask my son if he wishes to become a pilot when he grows up. He says he won't wish to drop bombs on people and houses. When we die, our souls leave our bodies, take with them everything they loved in our bedrooms, the perfume bottles, the makeup, the necklaces, and the pens. In Gaza, our bodies and rooms are crushed. Nothing remains for the soul. Even the souls, they get crushed under the rubble for weeks. Okay, last one from the old book. You will sing with me if you can. موطني موطني الجلال والجمال والسناء والهناء وفي رباك في رباك الحياة والنجاة والهناء والرجاء في هواك في هواك هل أراك سالما منعما وغانما مكرما سالما منعما وغانما مكرما هل أراك في علاك تبلغ السمك تبلغ السمك موطني 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 الشباب لن يكل همه أن يستقل أو يبيد أو يبيد نستقي من الردى ولن نكون للعدا كالعبيد كالعبيد لا نريد ذلنا المؤبدا وعيشنا المنكدا ذلنا المؤبدا وعيشنا المنكدا لا نريد بل نعيد مجدنا التاليد مجدنا التاليد موطني موطني. Forever homeless. That's the last poem I will read. Forever homeless. Before my long travel, I pack my suitcases, stuff them with some sand from our land, some scent from my mother's kitchen, and sounds of birds in the morning. And in my pockets, I put the 4 directions. My hands are the compass. At the airport, I beg the officer not to open the suitcases and, if needed, to touch my clothes gently. Otherwise, I would be standing on nothing, will be surrounded by nothing. I will see nothing. I would be weightless and forever homeless. Thank you. Shukran.